Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you're now watching the TNF podcast. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Click on that bell for notifications. Upcoming shows we got for you on the 8th of October. Venice Beach's own Happy Casualties. That's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern. Then we got Rob Turner, good friend of mine from Torch Runner. That's going to be on the 13th of October at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, I'd like to promote Hell's Heart merch. You can go to the site hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. Everything you buy in there, 20%. Guaranteed. All right. So, my guests today are some really awesome dudes. I got the pleasure of meeting them up in New York. They're doing things, man. They're going all over the place, and they've really helped to kind of solidify a upcoming scene up in New York. There's so many good bands that are coming out of there, and these guys are definitely one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Chris and Steve from Fire is Murder. What's going on, guys?
What's up?
How you guys doing?
I'm chilling, man. I'm glad to have you guys finally on the show. One question that I like to ask everybody is, how did you encounter music? Like, what's your first, earliest music memory? And then how did that kind of seg into hardcore? Like, did you play in a band? Did you play in school bands? What do you got?
Go ahead, Chris. You can go first.
Yeah, I guess music's always been in my life. My mother was a hippie. My father was in doo-wop groups. We listened to reel doo-wop when we were kids. My mother was always with the records, with the Beatles and all that kind of stuff. And so I always had music in my life. My brother was pretty much on the forefront when like he got into hardcore and everything, and he kind of brought it to me, like punk rock and metal and hardcore. He kind of like handed those things down to me. But when I was in high school, I first started the band in high school, and I was a sophomore, and the guys I started with were juniors at the time, and we played through their senior year actually, and so those were the first bands. We started a band called Blueprint, and then I went on to do another band called RAINMEN. We were first called God Awful. There's actually some God Awfuls out there now, but we were RAINMEN after that, and then after that I got into let me see. I did With the World Around Me, which was sort of like it was kind of melodic, like progressive rock kind of stuff. It was pretty cool, like post-hardcore-ish kind of. And then I did Shoot the Messenger. I sang with them for a while, which is sort of like a post-hardcore group. And then I found Steve.
What you got, Steve?
Yeah, definitely. We definitely found each other, and it's been really awesome. Music to me has been in my family. My father's a musician. I mean, I grew up. My first memories are like Motown 45s and like the Beatles and things like. My father just listened to Zeppelin. My mom listening to pop and like Madonna and stuff like that. And there was a lot of Michael Jackson was a big part of my life. Like when I was a kid, it was early. And then from that, like, I guess kind of the same as Chris, my brother is 6 years older than me. So like a lot came from my brother and my cousin, Steve, who was also a lot older than my brother. I still have the first pressings of Kill 'Em All and Master of Puppets. And I was listening to that stuff. And from there, I guess, like same as Chris, like you learn things from your older brother, but like he got into punk rock and hardcore. I was still like 11, 12 years old, and I like had metal bands in high school, because I was playing drums at like 7 years old, and I was in a band with a bunch of older dudes, and I was, playing some metal. Then I got into hardcore through my brother and his friends, James Lally and Gene. I guess I was like 12 or like just coming out of 11 or 12. I was going to hardcore shows and going to like the Wetlands and CB's and Coney Island High and seeing like Orange 9mm and Sick of It All. And like at the time, a little later on was like, you know, the Soul Brains was coming around, and then and like, you know, like the Cro-Mags weren't really playing anymore, but the AF had just came back around, and you know, they were doing all like, you know, like the Something's Gotta Give stuff, and I was taught to learn and like where all this shit came from and like get into your roots. And then me and my brother started Rise Above, which then became On the Rise, and kind of like we, from being in the scene and hanging out with everybody, we kind of met up with the dudes from AF, and they kind of took us under their wing, and they like, you know, we were a similar bunch of Mama Lukes, so we got a kick out of each other, so it kind of worked out, kind of looked alike. It was like kind of like fate in a way, like we all kind of really acted like Stigma anyway, you know. But it was something else. And then after whatever happened, and Jimmy Coletti left, and Rob Kabula left actually first because his job became too much. He was really had an amazing job in the city as a crane operator, and he really couldn't be like touring as much. But my brother came on, and then, you know, for much just hanging out was kind of just like the obvious choice. We just kind of melted into the band, and then they took On the Rise and added us to AF, and then I did that for like, you know, like, I mean, myself was in the band probably around 6.5, 7 years, but like the whole thing was like, you know, like since the beginning of it, like you know, I was on the road with them, and like since I was a kid, it was a hell of an experience, and it was a lot. And then I had left the band to you know, kind of like, always wanted to do my own thing. I was doing a lot of writing, and I always wanted to do some stuff for myself. And things took a couple of years, and then by the time 2020 rolled around, I wound up meeting Chris, and like he was like, "Why don't we just do something?" I'm like, "Yeah, but what do you want to like?" He said, "Don't think about it. Just play it. Just write something." We wrote something. We put the demo together, like during like the pandemic when nobody was around doing anything. It was like it was kind of cool. It was kind of like, those times reminded me like the Wild West when it was nobody around. You would go outside and it was fucking nobody out.
Yeah.
He would come over and like,
and that was the only place I could go. I mean, honestly, you couldn't go anywhere. So I was living in an apartment by myself. So it was like, oh my God, I got to go out, like, and go do something. And we would go. I'd go down to Queens, and you know, he started writing stuff at his house and everything like that. And yeah, so be it. Like we put a demo together, like, you know, pretty much out of his apartment. And you know, we actually recorded the vocals for one of the first songs that we did right there down in the basement.
Yep.
So yeah, that was like the pandemic project.
It really was. It was done really, and you could hear it, because even at the time, I'm not saying I even really know what I'm doing recording now. That's why I don't put out our stuff really anymore. But that was really meant to be what it was, like a demo and a real raw, like hardcore demo, like you would get back in the day. And it was kind of, I wanted it like that way. We wanted it to be that way, and just like kind of throw the band out like old school, but DIY, like pandemic style. Like, you can't do anything right now, but this is how we're fucking doing it, you know? And it kind of was, it was there for that time, you know? And now, like, you know, I rather prefer the way we record with Front Row Recording with John, and like, he's fucking amazing. But that was cool for its time, and that was what it was supposed to be. And it was kind of really, I'm really proud of it as DIY as it is, and it sounds. And then, like, you know, you could hear it had a little, you know, as if we were not spring chickens anymore, but it had a little bit of that teenage angst to it, you know what I mean? And like,
oh yeah,
it was cool. I'm proud of it. I'm definitely proud of it.
And you know, like, that was kind of a trying time for everybody. Like you said, you go outside, there's nobody out there. Remember, I was in Robertson Boulevard in LA, and it was like the movie 28 Days Later, where it's like nobody's on it was the most eerie, surreal thing. And you guys being in a big city, I'm sure, like, you know, New York is crowded,
Weird.
crazy people all the time, and then you just go out there and it's like
Weird.
zombie world, you know?
Absolutely. It was. I was actually working during the pandemic, and I would get from my apartment, I'm in Ridgewood, Queens, to anywhere uptown Manhattan, like 15 minutes. There was not it was like Mad Max. There was not a soul on the road.
Yep.
Crazy. And this is Manhattan, and that's never like that.
Yeah.
It's surreal even thinking back to it. We were just like, I can't believe we're in the middle of Times Square right now, and there is not one person out here but us. Great, you know, like
so weird to me.
yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about Fire is Murder as far as like, you know, what are your guys' influence as far as like aesthetics, as far as thematically, and as far as like sonically? Like, what are your influences in like all three of those realms?
Aesthetically, I like things to be as real as possible. Just kind of like the way, you know, as what even became kind of what looks as a look is just you know, like the bands that we grew up, you know, I was always had a hardcore look to me. I always had a, you know, somewhat, but it's just you. Musicians have a look to them. It should just be real. Like the Ramones, they got up on stage with their leather jackets.
I meant more so as like artwork is concerned.
Oh, artwork, dark.
Yeah.
And just dark and bold, black and white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Simple. I think of a no frills box as like that's like how our demo is, but it's progressing. Chris, you can expand on that. That's really kind of you have a vision too with that stuff. I like dark stuff, bold, just like not
Yeah, I
too
mean,
much. It could get too much these days, and I like it just to be straightforward, you know.
yeah, I mean, when I came up, I came up with the name Fire is Murder when during the pandemic again, everybody's this community, the hardcore community, basically was communicating on an Instagram level. That was pretty much it. Like there's some Facebook, but Instagram was really where the heart was beating still as far as hardcore is concerned. And I came up with the name. I was commenting on something from Sub-Zero was putting. Sub-Zero is guys that I grew up with and where I grew up, and they were putting out like a one song single, and it's the last thing they've ever done so far. And they were putting out a single, and I was commenting on it, and people how they say like that's fire, you know what I mean? And then I put and fire is murder. And I was like, yo, that would be a really cool, like I just came up with it. I was commenting it. And I was using the emojis. So like the fire and the knife. And so that was already down. The name was already down. So when I met Steve a little bit later and we were talking about names for a band, I was like, how would you like Fire is Murder? And it was like, we wanted something very simple too. So the emoji thing worked really well for it. Steve, we did send it off to somebody and we manipulated the fire a little bit. We also manipulated the knife so it wouldn't have like I don't know, like something you did to it. So it was a little bit different from the emoji itself, you know? So we did manipulate those emojis a little bit to kind of make our own like our own symbols for the band, kind of like Prince, he had a symbol, we came up, that was our symbol, like the fire and the knife. And when we play shows, like when we can remember it, we have a backdrop. I don't know if Steve's got it there, if he could see it, but there's a backdrop and it's got the big fire knife on it. And that's what we use as a backdrop. We try to infuse that into everything we do, all our graphics and everything like that, all of our stuff that's coming up, other than the single. I think the single that we did, Victory of the Saints, which really kind of like it had its own little theme, I guess, to it. But everything that we pretty much done, the EP, Masato Chaos, shout out to him. He drew that EP cover for us, and that was really embracing like it's really great, like the triangle, the city. You could see the cityscape upside down in it. You could see the fire, the knife, and there's kind of like a reaper. I think there's a reaper, right? Is there still a reaper, or we got rid of the reaper?
We need confirmation of the reaper. Hang on.
Yeah, we don't have the reaper.
There was a reaper at the top, but that's where we kind of fit in like the name of the band. So we kind of had to remove that to make it fit, because the band name didn't pop out, but like the way it is up top, like Misato did a sick job. That's like my favorite. Chris actually printed that on the back of my battle vest, which made it so awesome. I love that Misato print.
Yeah.
That thing is
so going back, and when we met, we talked about these heat presses, for the shirts and stuff. That was the first thing that I ordered for the heat press, was that EP cover. And all the shirts that we did, and I put them on different things. I put them on sweatshirts. I put them on everything. That's the great thing about those heat presses, is that you're not like slave to the screen, kind of. You can go on different materials and everything like that. But that was one of the first things that we did with the heat press, was that EP cover.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And with the heat press too, it's I got one, and it's like I always want to make shirts for myself, or I want to make shirts for friends. I'm like, hey, have this shirt or whatever, but it comes to a point where it's like, you got to kind of dial it back a bit. But Steve and I were talking about that, and like that's like a game changer for like a DIY hardcore band, is to like be able to like make your own merch and like do all that other stuff. I mean, like you end up saving so much money in the long run, and then you have the ability to do something like, if you wanted to use that to like drum up additional business, like not even in hardcore, like you wanted to produce shirts for like a little league team or something like that, you got that ability. So I mean, that's a really like sound investment right there.
Well, yeah, you're cutting out the middleman, and I have my own distributor where I buy the t-shirts, the hats from, and everything like that. I have a person that does the embroidery patches that we put on the hats. We totally cut out the middleman. And what the greatest thing about it is, I can be like, all right, I'm going to make 20 of these shirts. I'll order a new screen. Like we're one of the only bands up in, first shows. And I got 5 different t-shirts to offer, because not only do I do it with the silk screen, but I have the heat press. So I have a couple I do with the heat press, 3 that I do with the silk screen. And it's and money wise, it just makes sense. If you have the room to do those things, to have those tools and the room to use them, it takes a little bit of time to learn how to do. The silk screen thing, I was kind of like hesitant about. Like I had to build up my confidence to do it, but once I started doing it, I was just ripping shirts out, like putting the heat on it, and like 1, 2, 3. It was really fast and stuff. So that was a big game changer for us.
And like I actually enjoy it too, in that like there's almost like a cathartic feeling to it. Like I just really enjoy that sound of like hearing the press go down and hearing the steam come out, and then you lift it up and you peel it off, and it's like, whoa, there's like artwork on here. This is cool as shit. It's like a ASMR. Have you ever heard of ASMR?
I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. Like, they'll like take Christmas wrapping paper and like crinkle it up and shit.
Yeah. All different.
Oh, like splitting watermelons.
Yeah.
Like people like that. They like the sound of splitting watermelons. And it's also something we grew up with. If you were a kid that was into metal in the 80s, like about heat presses. You used to go into a store, and like in the malls or whatever, and they had all the different heat press things. And my first one I totally remember was, I was in kindergarten, and I got Iron Maiden Killers. I had that pressed on it like a 3/4 red sleeve, 3/4 t-shirt, with the 3/4 sleeves, you know,
baseball cut.
and I wore that shit. I wore that thing to school, and the teachers called my mother and had my mother bring in another T-shirt because it was scaring the other kids.
Wow.
Oh,
You imagine
Yes.
what that shirt's worth today?
Yeah, yeah. And you know, in the heat transfers have come a long way as well. You know, they're actually, what they're doing now is they're actually screening. You know, they use a computer to screen the same exact ink that they use for silk screening. They're putting on the laminate, and you're actually heating up that same ink, and you're putting it on a shirt so it's more durable. You know,
Yep.
it lasts a lot longer. You know, back in the day, the old ones, and people still do it, they get the paper ones, the paper heat transfers,
Yeah.
and you know, because they crack all over the place, they get really hard after a bunch of washes. The ones that I use, you know, they're really durable and they last a real long time. I'm going to tell you, it's been like 2 years, and I have T-shirts that have stood up, you know, the test of time with that stuff. So it's come a real far way.
That's awesome. And you guys
Yeah.
mentioned Iron Maiden, you know, which I've listened to your music, and it seems like, you know, pretty obviously that you guys are influenced by metal. And, you know, I will say, like, vocally, Chris, you remind me a lot of Age of Quarrel Cro-Mags. Like, you know, kind of like there's melody in your delivery and stuff. And I thought that was really kind of cool and unique, you know, because you don't really hear a lot of that anymore, you know. And so what, you know, influentially, like, you know, what are like your probably biggest artists as far as, you know, kind of what you listened to like growing up, and then when you were more directed at Fire is Murder, like what were you looking for as far as sound wise?
Uh, you asking Chris? Are you asking either of us?
Whomever wants to
Uh,
answer.
Yeah,
I,
I think Steve can go into, like, you know, because he writes all the music and stuff. You know, Steve,
I mean,
you know, you have a lot of influence, like Metallica, and you know, they say we're
yeah.
the hardcore of, what is it? The Iron Maiden of hardcore. That's what people have called us.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you know what? It's funny that I, not that I don't fucking love Iron Maiden tremendously. I definitely do tremendously. Metallica's like my harmonies and stuff. I think about Thin Lizzy and Metallica like when I'm doing those harmonies, and my influences are totally just like of that realm of that early thrash metal, you know, like lots of Slayer, lots of Sepultura, the earlier albums, and the tremendous, as especially as where my drumming came from, is I always try to approach everything like Igor Cavalera because it just sounded so fucking brutal to me, you know what
Oh
I
yeah.
mean? It was just, but as far as writing for Fire is Murder, I wanted to put a piece of everything that I'm into from, and I'm very much into a lot of post-hardcore and like Quicksand and Orange Nine and like Burn and stuff like that, where it has Chris's fucking vocals like just blended beautifully with that. And I love that he has
Burn is
such a,
another one that I heard too.
yeah, and I always wanted to just mix the really fast thrash, heavy fucking metal with a lot of that. I loved the way those post-hardcore dudes put such discorded harmony and melody into something that could also sound so fucking hard at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to do well like those guys fucking did. And I just want to try and put a piece of everything that we have. And I'm not going to speak for Chris, but I can kind of, I from being in a band with him and knowing what he does, he kind of does the same thing where he puts all his influences into it. And I think that's what kind of makes us have a little bit, I would say a bit of its own sound. I mean, if I can say myself, I think that the two of us together create something that sounds a bit different, and that I'm definitely proud of, and I love it, you know.
Yeah, vocally, I've always really liked, like Iron Maiden. You know, that was really one of my first metal influences. I mean, when I was a little kid, when like I said, I was a kindergartner when I got that T-shirt. And we had a family, the Sarleys, who used to babysit us down the road, and I used to just hang out outside. They were all into hunting and fishing and everything. They were real outdoors people, and we would shoot bows and arrows in the backyard and everything. And we hung out with this guy Nicky, and Nicky's older brother Anthony Sarley. There was quite a bit of an age gap between us. So like Nicky was like 3 years older than me, which my brother was too, and his brother was like probably like 10 years older than him. Like there was this huge age gap, and we're hanging out. And this guy comes out, and I'm gonna tell, like, metalhead, hair long, everything like that. He comes out, and I'm like 5, 6 years old, and I'm sitting out in front of the house, and he's got this little apartment down at the bottom of the house. This is suburbia, Putnam County, New York. And he comes out, and he was like the bad dude. Like he had like a JD card, so everybody was like, ooh, he's like the bad kid on the block. And he comes out, and he lights a joint, and I'm like, what the fuck is, I'm like, what the hell is that? He's like, hey, Chris, come down here, I want you to see something. And I'm like, I'm like really hesitant, because my mom's like, stay away from Anthony, and like, so I go down there, and he's got the sliding doors into his room. They like tucked him in the bottom somewhere, and he's got sliding doors, and his room's like really dark and everything. And he hits this black light, and he's got this huge felt poster, with like the black light posters of Iron Maiden Killers. He's got the poster in there, and I was like, ooh, whoa, what's that? He's like, this is who it is, and he puts them on the record, and I was like, from that day on, I was like, and I was into skateboarding and stuff like that. So, there were, I saw things in like Thrasher magazine and everything. But like when he put that stuff on, I was like hooked. I went and bought the cassettes, the single cassettes and stuff. That was a really big thing. Iron Maiden put out so many singles. I had so many single cassettes, and, I got hooked on that. But the thing I really liked about them is that, you can understand what he was singing. Like his voice was really clear, and I really caught on to that.
Yeah.
And, I sang along with Iron Maiden and stuff like that. And when I got into hardcore, you had a lot of guys, they use a rougher voice, or they were more punk rock and a little screeniness to it. Like, my first bands were like Gorilla Biscuits. I was really into them. And, and then I found Sick of It All and Agnostic Front and all these, but I was really into a lot of straight edge bands. And I remember, so, the big place that in Putnam County, you would go down to the city, like the CBGBs and stuff like that. But the closer spot was like over in Brewster and in Danbury and Newburgh. And like, that's really close in vicinity of like Route 84. And like that intersected with 684 by Mayapack. And we would go out to a place called the Anthrax. And that was in Norwalk, Connecticut. And one of my first, before I even went to my first show, my brother hung out with Lou from Sub-Zero and Larry Susie, and remember, these guys are teenagers, they're still in high school, and I'm 3 years younger, 4 years younger than some of them. And they went out to the Anthrax, and they would come and they would sleep over, and I would go downstairs and tiptoe around and look to see what kind of merch they had and everything like that. And I saw this album on the ground, and I lifted it up, and it was an Absolution 7-inch. And I ran upstairs, and I put that thing on, and I'm going to tell you that was one of the really big game changers for me as well. When I heard Dingy Brown from Absolution singing, it was something that really I identified with. It was like that style, and also You know, Gavin was the guitarist, and he had the next band was Burn, and you had Chaka sing as well. And same thing, like that voice coming through, that clarity, you know, like putting that little twist on it, you know, and you know, it just so happens, you know, my twist, I think my twist when I put it on it, you know, you do get that kind of like John Josephy kind of sound out of me. You know, it's you know, where certain people, when they twist that kind of vocal kind of thing, you know, you get different things out of it. You know, you get different quality out of your voice and stuff like that.
Gets
And you know, that's
personalized.
where I think that comes in.
You know, people
Absolutely.
personalize it with their own feel. It's how you feel it. It's how it comes out.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
yeah,
you mentioned Absolution, which, you know, that's kind of a deep cut, and that was a group that I didn't even hear about until I was like much older, and it was through one of my friends that I worked with. Um, you know, and you also mentioned about like Steve, you mentioned about like knowing your roots and stuff like that. Do you feel that knowing your roots and understanding hardcore history has kind of been lost on the current generation of hardcore kids?
100%. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like I mean, and I don't want to be negative about anything or anybody, but I feel if I have any, I guess, advice to give to the newer generation is check out the bands that this all came from, because I think it'll give you something really awesome to listen to, and it'll broaden your horizons and get you to understand where it all came from.
Right.
And
yeah.
it was back then. What was really cool about it back then was it was being created, and I know the newer kids are really into individualism, and that's something that they would really love about the old scene, and how it was really just the birth of individualism. Because like any time before, if you think like, yo, humanity is so fucking young, if you think about it, just into like really the late 50s into the 60s, people started kind of like branching off and doing their own thing. Yo, everybody
Yep.
just wore a fucking hat, suit and tie. A woman wore this big ass fucking wool dress every day. Like you coming into like the late 60s, or the even in the early 60s, and like, I'm not a fucking historian, but I know things started around that time. But like when it comes into like the 70s and the 80s, and where this whole thing that we're into, this whole scene and this punk rock and shit, really came from a whole bunch of bands, and like check out MC5, and like how they like started a whole fucking revolution that had a lot to do with the feel of punk rock. And like
Oh
even
yeah.
the Who back in the day, back the Who had a feel of some of the first punk rock idealisms, you know. And there's like these kids today that are into a lot of individualism and being yourself and like really individualizing. I think that they would really appreciate how fucking you were really being an individual back then, because it
Oh
came
yeah.
fucking nowhere. And those kids back then created all bands like the fucking Dead Boys and Agnostic Front, and like all those bands from back in the day that were just really creating
Oh
something.
yeah.
And it was there was rock and roll, and then there was like, you know, like then punk rock kind of came from that. But these kids were like, they were fucking angry, and they created fucking hardcore, and you know,
Oh yeah.
they were living real hard lives on the street, and that angst and that anger created something that was rock and roll, heavy metal, and fucking punk rock all combined, and it's created this insane, awesome, fucking angry, but positive in the same way, which is so crazy because the
Right.
outside world looks at us as such terrible, horrible people, but we're like the first person to fucking help you out in the street.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't even realize that how positive what we're saying it, and like we're saying it with angst, but we're saying a lot of positive things. I
Sure.
mean, I know, and I know Chris is not preaching about Satan for sure, and fucking you know, chopping anybody's head off. We're talking about real life, and how to persevere through it, because we're all trying to do that ourselves. I think as humanity as a whole is just trying to fucking survive every day, right?
Truth. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, I get looked at like I'm like a devil worshiper a lot of time. I believe in God, you know. So that's the funny thing, you
Oh
know, like,
yeah,
oh, he wears like black
absolutely.
clothes. and listen to like
I think
angry music and shit, you know?
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
what's actually interesting, just to piggyback on what Steve's talking about, is there is an emergence that is going on right now, and you see a lot of these bigger labels. You got like Triple B. You have what's another one? Triple B. There's a few different
Upstate
ones. War
Records.
Records. Yeah, there's a few of these companies that are really, there's money coming in from somewhere, and they're putting on these big shows and everything. But the kids that are getting into this, and honestly, this is another weird, like, kind of I think, like, the pandemic has a little bit to do with this as well, where there's sort of like, there's this disconnect, right, with kids getting into this music, and all of a sudden after the pandemic, you see like hardcore, like, flying, like all these bands, like all these big shows and all these labels blowing up and everything like that are happening. But I think there is a small emergence going on regarding, like kind of stepping back and them finding out. A lot of these new kids are finding out. They're figuring this stuff out, and it's going to take a little time, because it's kind of like it's a backpedal, that people have to do, and they have to be really open minded to it, because you see like bands like Negative Approach going out there, Circle Jerks. You see Gorilla Biscuits, Youth of Today, Shelter, all these bands that are still doing stuff, Judge, and stuff like that. They're These kids are starting to catch on. I think there is a small emergence going on regarding that, and I think it's interesting. And to us to us it's like, we go to shows down in Manhattan, where there's sort of like this, there's still an underground scene. There is still an underground scene. And then you go to, like, I went, during the hardcore Super Bowl, the Black and Blue. I went over and I saw, one night with Agnostic Front and everything, and then the next night, like, Drain, and all these other bands. What was the other one? Drain, and Regulate, and some of these newer bands and stuff. And like the kids, it's like there's one scene and then there's another scene. You know, and if you talk to some people, they'll even say there's like up to like five different scenes now. There's like this more mainstream scene. There's still like an underground scene. You have your Afro punk scene. There's different scenes out there right now. And it's going to take some time for all that stuff to sort of reconnect. It's happening. It is happening. What I'd really like to see is some of these new kids, like, really, you know getting involved and getting interested in what we're doing in the underground, because there's a lot of music there, you know and it's really, I think it's hard for people when they really work hard for a band, and bands, it's really up to them. You have to have the heart to do it.
Yep.
Whether you're a new band or an old band or whatever, you have to have the heart to do it and to pursue it. you know you can't go in thinking like, oh, we're going to be like this band and we're going to be like that band and everything like that. There's an underground scene, and we play because we love the music. And I'd love to see sort of people, like, kind of dig in their pockets a little bit, and find that and connect with that, because that's really where it comes from. you
Yeah.
know you know
And
it's you're looking at outcomes, but you have to look at where the pretense of that, where that all began, and that's where it is. That's that underground scene. That's that Sunday matinee that happens once a month down in Manhattan, down in the Bowery, with Drew Stone and the New York Hardcore Chronicles. That's what's left of
yeah.
what used to happen down there in CBGBs. You know,
Yeah, and uh it's interesting because, and I want to come back to the part about the different scenes in New York. But you know, you can even look further back than, we were talking about the 60s and the 70s, like MC5, like the Stooges and stuff. You can even go further back and look at a lot of the surf rock bands like the Ventures and like Dick
Hmm.
Dale and like Link Ray and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And you can even go back further and look at like big bands like Benny Goodman and like Glenn Miller and like that shit was punk rock for the time, like.
Sure.
And so it's
Absolutely.
amazing, like it's almost like a history lesson, like, oh, who influenced Bad Brains and Cro-Mags? Oh, who influenced Iggy Pop and stuff like that. And it's almost like you're almost discovering like or you're reading a book and you're like getting to different chapters in the book,
Right,
like
right.
I love that about it. But back to what we were saying about the different scenes in New York. Yeah, I was actually there at Drew Stone's birthday party, and like a couple like crusty kids showed up, and it was like they never like typically go to shows like that, but they were just there and they were welcome and stuff, and like apparently that's kind of a thing, like where there will like New York is a huge city, but there's like a bunch of kind of disconnected scenes that kind of all do their own thing. And I heard something crazy, like you know, uh, I can't remember who it was. I think it was John Joseph was talking about how Cro-Mags and Agnostic Front have never played a show together, and that to me was mind blowing. Like, how did that happen?
I don't know. I don't know. Wow. I
Is
can't
that
really.
true?
According to him, yeah. I was like, I mean, I don't know if that's true now, but like, back in the day, I was like, how is it that like two of the like most prolific like hardcore bands from that scene never played a show together?
I don't know. I don't know.
That's weird.
That's funny. I mean, he would know a lot better than I would. I mean, I listen. I was lucky enough to have as many years as I was in that band, but I don't have anything to do with the history of those fucking guys.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what if there's any reason behind it or if it's a coincidence. I never really thought about that myself.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I mean, there's a few bands like North Carolina that like bands that we never got a chance to share the stage with some of my previous projects, but we're all kind of not as closely connected because we're so like spread apart, like so that was mind blowing to me that like two bands from the same city would have never had the opportunity
Right.
to share the stage. But let's talk about like the like kind of what is going on at present with Fire is Murder. Have you guys done any extensive touring, or have you uh like done anything longer than weekends, or is that kind of in the pipeline?
We would love to. That's something that we're looking into doing right now. We're concentrating on writing some new stuff. Um, we're gonna be recording very very soon. We're gonna be probably putting out one track right now, and possibly another one. But after that, we're probably going to be looking into doing maybe something a little bit bigger of a release, maybe a full length or an EP or something like that. But we're always on the lookout of doing a tour and trying to get something together, depending on everybody's schedule. But yes, we're absolutely looking into doing some touring as soon as possible and
It's
supporting the next
it,
release that we have.
yeah, it's definitely a challenge too. It's not it's not very easy. You have a bunch of people that work, and there's family, there's and between work and family and stuff like that. It's very difficult, but definitely if that opportunity comes up, and listen, I talk to Steve a lot about this, is that whatever's gonna happen is obviously gonna happen. It's like it is what it is, but we're in here for the long haul. As long as me and Steve started this project, we're in for the long haul. No matter what that takes, or whatever we have to do, we're going to continue to make music. If half the band left tomorrow, me and Steve would still make music and go into a studio and put something together. We would continue this, and do this until we put the pieces back together. We it was challenging enough to put this together in the first place. Remember, we did this right at the ass end of the pandemic, and it was hard. You know, you couldn't even get in a studio. You know,
Right.
we got into a studio like 2 months before we could play a show. You know, and we didn't even have the whole band together. We got like dribs and drabs. Like we got Mike, and then we got Danny, and or Danny, and then we got Mike, and then we had Kute for a while, and then Artie came along later on, but that was really thrown together, we had we were practicing in July, and we were going to play our first show in, I think it was September.
Yeah.
Question I had to ask, as far as interesting tour experiences, or even interesting hardcore experiences, and I'm sure you guys have got plenty being in New York, but where being on the roads, being at a show, what's the wildest, craziest shit you guys have ever seen or experienced at a hardcore show?
Wildest.
Oh.
All right, let me keep this. I also gotta keep it friendly.
Yeah.
User friendly.
Gotta keep it PG-17 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I'll keep it PG-17. So I'm in Berlin, and we're with some chosen friends, hardcore guys over there, and I'm not gonna name anybody's names because somebody grabbed a dead rat and bit the head off of it and proceeded to chew on it and swallow it. Now, I will say my brother's fucking name, but Mike Gallo standing next to me, he sees it, he literally turns to the side and, like a fucking movie, projectile vomited. It was just like a movie, hysterical. Yo, my man ripped it like Ozzy ain't got shit on me, and took another bite. And we'll just say for the next couple of days on that tour, he wasn't feeling so well.
Did somebody bet him to do it or something, or he just did it?
No, this was pure will. This was just kind of the personality of this individual. They were really, and this person was, to talk to you, was a sweet fucking person, good person, just a little bit out, a lot of it out there.
Just a little unhinged.
Yeah, a little unhinged.
That's great. What do you got, Chris?
I'm just gonna go back to my first show, at the Anthrax, and I never, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, and that's what kept me, that's what kept me going on this. That was the craziest thing. My first show was a benefit, and it had it was stacked. It was stacked. It was Sick of It All, Killing Time, Underdog, what's his name? The guy Zach from Rage Against the Machine, his first band.
Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Yeah.
Yup, they were there from California. They came with Underdog. Underdog was from California at the time, and there was them. There was Inside Out there were two Inside Outs. There was Inside Out from California, and there was Inside Out from the Bronx. And Inside Out from the Bronx had two singers. They kind of rap. They did their rap thing, kind of like the first people to kind of do that too. And that's 1989. People weren't really doing that before. Biohazard put that rap kind of style into it and stuff like that. They were doing that kind of thing. But that was the most ridiculous thing I ever saw, and it was so chaotic, and the place was upside down. There were people hanging from the ceilings, and that was just the craziest thing I saw. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole thing, and that's definitely something that always speaks to me, as far as my memories are concerned. Crazy things happened at shows as we got older, things that happened, that you saw that happened, and that you kind of leave it to what you saw, and you don't talk about it. But in a positive light, just seeing a crowd like that, and that kind of energy going off the wall, it was crazy. It was awesome.
Yeah, there's there's an element of danger. I think that is usually the most like attractive thing to anybody that hasn't really experienced hardcore. And my question would be, do you feel like we were talking about the knowing the roots and everything? Do you feel that that element of danger has been somewhat lost as well?
I don't know. I mean, if you go to a beatdown show, it's pretty crazy, man.
Yeah, but it's
Like beatdown
there's
hardcore. I mean, like that's off the hook stuff. I mean, everybody's got their own taste or whatever, but that's really aggressive style, and
yeah.
we saw that in the mid 90s. We saw that happen in the mid 90s, a very aggressive style of dancing and stuff, and honestly led to like a lot of closing of a lot of clubs and stuff.
Yeah, killed the
People
scene for
getting
a
hurt,
long time because it's
you
not
know.
really what hardcore is about. Hardcore is about being together and like, yo, you go nuts, you do your fucking thing. People gonna get hit in the meantime, but you don't fucking just go over and aim and just punch somebody in the face. That to me
Right.
is it's fucking ridiculous, bro.
And
You're
I
not
think like,
dancing. You're just hitting someone in the face. That's come on.
yeah, Ian McKay, like when he was, when he transitioned to Fugazi from Minor Threat and uh
They wouldn't play. They
well,
would
yeah,
stop
because
playing.
he was saying that a lot of the kids, he's like, I don't know what all this crazy dancing shit comes from. He was like, you guys are
Yeah,
out there like murdering each other, but not like, aggressively. Like
yeah,
when people
yeah.
go out in the pit and they are dancing and shit, and like, somebody knocks somebody down, you pick them back up. That's happened to me
Exactly.
countless fucking
Exactly.
times. But like, then you got douchebags that are just there to fucking start shit, and like
when
he was
when you
commenting
see
on that.
somebody running across the stage to do a stage dive, but punching people while he's going to go do it, like
Right.
punching people
Yeah.
and people getting punched in the back of the head that are by the stage that are trying to sing along. It's like
Stupid.
I don't know what that's about. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, to each his own. It is a part of the scene. It is a part of what goes on. But it's there is a dangerous element different though. Like, it was always dangerous to go in a mosh pit. It was always dangerous to do a
Yeah.
stage dive. But the difference is that people supported it. Like there was
Yes.
support. There was a cushion there, and that was called other people understanding how it worked.
But yo, when I first went to hardcore shows, and this is in the early '90s, and this is kind of when it's like started coming back around again, like '93. You know what I mean? Like it was starting to come back around a little bit. There were these two fucking dudes, and they were huge. They were like these muscle heads in the pit. One guy was black and one guy was white, and they would fucking dance around the pit. And when me and my boy were going in the pit, we're like, man, they used to take us like beach balls and throw us around, and they used to like throw us like to each other. It was like a beach. It was but we were safe. They took care of us. We would dance as hard as we wanted. They danced. You got in the fuck. You knew. Listen, you don't get in the way of big fucking dudes throwing elbows, and you knew what to do. But they weren't. Nobody was aiming for you. It was a
Right.
fucking camaraderie of what goes back to the basis of what fucking hardcore is all about, and that's fucking together, is being together, and everybody being an individual.
Unity.
And by being an individual, it wasn't. We could get people back then used to be able to dress the way that they dressed, and they could go out in public and get punched in the fucking face. We weren't trying to do that to each other. That was a place to be safe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was a place, you let out your fucking emotions. If someone gets hit in the process, you pick them up. You know what I mean? We will, like
Right.
you said, that's how it was. That
Well,
shit, I don't know. I
and
don't know
two,
what that.
you talk about like individualism, but there is like a collectivist aspect to it in that like, everybody's, what do they say, unity through diversity. Like everybody may have their own thing. You've got people that believe in God, you got people that are atheists, you got people that are left leaning, right leaning, you got people of all different races and whatnot. Didn't matter at the end of the day. Everybody was
Exactly.
friends. They put all that shit at the fucking door and we're like, let's just
Exactly.
go have fun, and I think, I don't know. I think that element's a little bit lost, a little bit.
Very much. I think a lot of it, I think everything today, and it comes a lot from, I mean, it's great to have technology that me, you, and Chris can be on the fucking phone and on a video chat right now and spread the good word this way. But it's also taken away from a lot of things. It's taken away from going out and finding your own thing and having to really search for something new. And it took away everything's very clicky now. And I think that has a lot to do with the internet, and a lot of things have to fall into a certain place, and that's not really where we came from, and that's not really what it was all about. And there's just a lot of that falling into the same place. And I don't know, it's been a very long time since I was a fucking teenager, but I'm sure they deal with a lot of, like not having, you got to do this, you got to have this phone, you got to do that thing.
Yeah.
You don't listen to this fucking band, you don't like this. Nah, but I knew guys that, like, people that, like, oh, you didn't like this, how do you not fucking like this band? All right, because it's an individual, because he doesn't fucking like it. You know what I mean? He doesn't like it because Bob likes it, or you know what I mean? It's that's not what this is about. This is getting away from that.
Yeah.
But like Chris said, I think though, in its time, it'll come, and people are finding out where this is all coming from, and there's kids out there that really do want to be individuals and really do want to find this stuff. And that's what the thing is there's always going to be people with passion, and then once there's always people with passion, there will always be a scene like this. There will always be art. There will always be creativity. But just because, listen, the sheep, man, they're gonna infiltrate everywhere you go. Sheep are just so many of them. They're like cockroaches in it. And listen, listen, if that's your thing, you want to do that. This is not the place for that. This is for to get away and do your own thing. This is for people that are individuals and have passion into their art and our scene. We love to nurture all kinds of fucking art, whether it be like a visual, fucking music, photography, everything you do. Like that's what's great about it. It's be yourself. Come and be yourself. Come as you are. You're welcome. Come as you are, and you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Enjoy what's going on.
You guys had mentioned some, upcoming bands within the New York scene, and I'm familiar with like a handful of them, like, Rebelmatic, Incendiary Device. Drew, I always knew Incendiary Device as Antidote. I know you get pissed off when people call them Antidote, but that's how I knew them.
I know, I get it, man. That's okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna get mad. I'm glad, we're all glad to know that you know of us over here.
Yeah.
In the scene,
But I mean, like, what are some other ones that are like up and coming, like as far as bands that you need to look out for? I know there's not New York technically, but Silence Equals Death, and like my friends and Concrete Ties from Connecticut, and like who else?
Oh man, there's Crazy Eddie. You got I fucking hate this, bro. I hate doing this. I don't want to forget anybody. Non-residents. Don't forget non-residents.
Yeah, you got Concrete Ties, who's kind of like Massachusetts, Connecticut, but they're all friends with us. There's a lot going on in the Hudson Valley as well. There's a lot of bands in the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, I was reading.
We just played up in Middletown, and we played with this band Grave Heist, this band Gunk from New Jersey. There was a couple different bands. What is it? Something. Oh, Burn It Down. They're from like up in that area too. They were pretty hard. There's a lot of new stuff out there. You know what it is? It's and you see it, like there's a lot of new stuff, but I guess what matters is if it transcends through time, like if it sticks, you know what I mean? Like it's not easy to have a band, and I'm not saying it's easy to have a band, but you see things like fizzle out. It's weird. Things come and go, and and it's not as condensed anymore. It's very loose. It's not condensed anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, and like, again, social media has a huge thing to do with that, the access of being able to see this stuff,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of bands, and you have to search it out, and hopefully more people will figure this stuff out.
Absolutely.
But there is a big underground scene too, and sometimes it can be polarized, but other times, you do see people come around, and you hope that you see more people come around. You go to some shows and you see all these people, you go to other shows, you see all these people. It's like there's so much going on.
Yeah, 100%. And like, what do you guys do as far as, when you're not playing music? Like, what do you guys have any other like creative pursuits or endeavors?
Playing music. That's it. That's the
That's
only
it.
Finger
thing that
painting.
goes
No.
through my fucking mind 24 hours a day. I wake up with the riff I was playing last night in my head, and I pursue putting that to something else and just keep going and going and going and over again.
That's
That's it.
beautiful.
That's been my life for the past 40 fucking years.
It's awesome, man.
It
Chris, you
is.
got
Yeah,
It
anything,
no,
is.
or is it all music too?
yeah, I think, for a long time in my life I was very busy working a lot, and we talked about it briefly before, being in the military for 21 years, really courted, and my hobby was working out, like, for a long time, was being training and everything like that, and as I got older, and, like, the military, I got out of the military and everything, it's like, what do I do now, and it's like
Yeah.
that all came together, the music came back into my life. Like, for a long time, music wasn't in my life like it is now, because I was so busy. I went overseas, and then I'd be on active duty for this and active duty for that. And, then Hurricane Sandy happens, and then I'm doing that for like a year, and it went by really quick. At the end of the day, 2022, when I got out, it was like, oh my gosh, it was like it all went by very quickly. So, this band came into my life really at a great time. Like, bringing me back into music like this, and doing it. It's something I really enjoy doing, and I tend to feel like I have a lot of passion for it. And that comes out through the music. And I think that, Steve as well, what he writes and everything, he works really hard on that. He just doesn't fart out music, man. He really he goes through everything with a real comb, and he wants to be unique, and he's always trying to come up with something like new, like something that you haven't heard yet. And I think that's part of passion. It's like, that's part of being creative. Like, an artist doesn't go, oh, I saw this guy's art, and I'm gonna be an artist just like him. If you're an artist just like somebody else, you're really not gonna pop out that much. You know what I mean? The most unique artists are the ones that transcend through time, and that will always be. But, like, music is the same thing. If you're being a cookie cutter band, you know what I mean, you're
Yeah.
gonna get, nobody's gonna remember you. You know
Right.
what I mean? And that's what the passion is to put your mark somewhere. Your mark in time. Even if it's in the underground. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's the reason why you do it. We're not a cover band. We do everything. We just started entertaining doing a cover song, and we haven't done that. Like, this has all been about doing original material.
Sure. Absolutely. 100%. And,
Yeah.
I, I just think it's great. Like, I kind of came to the realization years ago where it was like, not everybody's going to be a hate breed. Not everybody's going to be a biohazard, but that shouldn't be the reason that you do it. Like, you
Yeah.
should do it just because you love it. And, like, it sounds so cliche, but it's like, really, like, if you try to have this like magnanimous attitude about it, you're going to probably be disappointed, like, And so just to be able to go and just do it as like a release and as a catharsis, just because you love doing it, it's amazing, you know?
Yeah. I just do it because there's nothing else I like that drives me. That's it.
I hear you, man.
I do it because kind of like it's all I know how to do.
I
It's
hear
all
you.
It's
that
kind of
drives
weird.
me.
It's like I got nothing else. That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of this is it. This is what I
Hey,
do.
Chris, back to your tenure in the Army, like, did you keep it core there? Did anybody try to like give you shit because you were into hardcore or anything like that?
No, I think I think it was always my personal thing. I didn't like. It's like everything else in life. Like I never tried to put it down anybody's throat. You know, I did find out I was at a show. I was at a show in Tompkins Square Park a few years back when they did that big Madball show, like one of the first ones that they did in Tompkins Square Park a few years back, right after the pandemic. And I bump into a sergeant major that was in one of my units,
Oh
and
wow.
he's like, I'm like, holy shit. And like we had so much, we knew the same people and everything like that, and it was like you never know. In the military, you have your military life and then you have your personal life.
Yep.
And and a lot of times, unless you're really friends on the outside, you don't really get to see people for them in their own lives.
Right.
So you'd be surprised, and I probably have bumped into a few people along the line that definitely, but it's people. This music, you wouldn't believe how many people listen to this music. But as far as the military is concerned, I never really put that out there. I was never like,
Sure.
I'm hardcore, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, or anything like that. I think people may have seen some of my tattoos and been like, what's that mean, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and you kind of dumb it down for them. It's like, it's got something to do with music, whatever. Like you
Yeah.
don't even get into it. Like I'm not like that. I just
Sure.
I like to keep things to myself. And when you see people in the outside world, you never know. Like if you're wearing a t-shirt, I was in a diner and one of the owners of the diner came out and he's like, oh my God, he's like, yo, you're in the hardcore. That's fucking cool. I went
Yeah.
to the Mind Force show the other week, and this and that. And you have something in common right away. Like
Right.
right away, you have something in common, you know?
And like it's interesting. I served for a period, and like one of my company commanders was like into oi music. Like he
Yeah.
outranked me significantly, and like was into like foreskins and shit like that. And then like
Yeah.
I had guys that were from Boston, and they were all about like Blood for Blood and Slapshot and shit like
Yep.
that. And like
Yep.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was cool to have that kind of community within that community.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Now I
It's
have to ask you guys as far as like, um, because like I said, I come from an entertainment background. What do you guys watch? What do you guys read? What's influencing you outside art besides music?
mm, I like Stephen King's stuff. I'm like a horror guy, so I wouldn't go by my literature. I'm not. I mean, like even though he's like the man, but um, movies and stuff like that. When I'm watching right now, actually just watched The Penguin. Was fucking awesome. It was
Is it good?
really good. Very good,
Okay.
very good. I highly recommend it. And I'm like an old school Batman fan, but I'm like I wouldn't really call myself like one of those dedicated followers of like I appreciated Batman back in the day, but like I like the movies. I like you know like cinematography and stuff like that. The Penguin was fucking awesome. That was really good. I was just watching Horizon. I think
Oh,
also
the
it's
Western.
also yeah, I like kind of some shit like that. It's done pretty good. It's kind of like there's only one episode of that. It's really long. I think that was pretty good, but it was good. It was done really well. But
I know they tried to do a theatrical release of that. And nobody wanted to watch a fucking 4-hour movie.
right. Yeah, exactly. Like it took me a little while to get through it, but it was good. It was good. They could have, cut it up a little bit, but it was.
I still haven't seen the Pattinson Batman yet, which is why I haven't seen the Penguin. Because I understand Colin Farrell was in that, and they kind of spun that off of that movie. So
Okay, yeah. See, I'm not like really into it. I just kind of like I heard this was good, and I was like, fuck it, let me watch this. And Colin Farrell's fucking. Let me tell you, he kills it in this. He
I
kills
didn't even know it was him. Like it
Dude,
doesn't look like him at all.
Not at all. I had to look. My boy told me it was him, and I'm like, you sure? Let me just look this up. Like, holy shit, it's that and he killed it. Like the New York accent, like he did really good. Like like a good movie New York accent, but he did it really well, and it was done really. I highly recommend it, 100%.
Okay. What do you got, Chris?
Right now, I've been watching the one about McMahon. No, the documentary. I love documentaries, and there's the documentary about Mr. McMahon from WWE. And it's really good. It kind of tells it from his point of view. I guess before, they keep on putting like something before he got brought up on all this like sexual harassment stuff. And stuff like that, but they recorded this right before that happened. So like when there's like 6 episodes, and it's really cool because they go through a lot of history. That dude's been in it from the beginning, like in the United States, and like my era of WWE's, like they have an episode called Attitude, and it's when Jim Austin. What's his name? The Rock and Steve Austin and Brett Michaels and all those guys
Bret Hart,
Owen Hart. They actually, I just was watching the episode. That's what it's called. It's called Attitude, and they go into that a little bit as well. The accident with Owen Hart and
my friend was there.
What's that?
My friend was there and saw it in real time.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. That's a horrible way to go, man. But it's a really great documentary. It's on Netflix. Check it out. I like that. I like some murder mystery, just some new stuff that's out there. Like I'm really into a lot of the documentaries that are out, like the 30-30s about sports and stuff like that. Couple of little like murder mystery things, like The Perfect Couple. That's a really cool one that's out right now. There's a lot of cool stuff. You just got to look for it. I like watching new stuff. I grew up watching a lot of like I don't know what they call, but like we watch things on rotation, The Godfather, Drugstore Cowboy, all those kind of like those, what do they call them?
Cult classics.
Yeah, they're like cult classics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We listen, and I'm talking when things were VHS and things were even DVDs. You know what I mean? Like, we've come disconnected from that because you would have like a library of VHS tapes, and we'd be like, oh, let's watch Bong Water again. Like, you know what I mean? Like things like that. Like, I'm gonna tell you, Drugstore Cowboy was like one of my go-tos. I've watched that like a million times, it's things like that, which is cool. So I spent a lot of time watching all those movies growing up and everything. So, I'm the type of person that goes on like Netflix or goes on like Prime or goes on and I'm always looking for something new. I like a lot of documentaries these days. Sometimes we'll even watch some nature ones, like about animals and stuff like that. They have a really good one about dogs that came out, like about the dogs' minds and stuff like that, and like going into like really how intelligent they are and everything, and like I've been I'm a big fan of animals. I love pets. I have a cat, and like so I like stuff like that too. So
That's all.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing
You
in
know,
particular. I love Marvel.
I like the classics. I go on this fucking channel. What's it called? I think it's called Pluto, and they got like all the old
oh
school
yeah,
shit on, bro. Oh, I love it.
all the
Yeah.
Godzilla shit is on Pluto too, which is
Yo,
amazing.
I'm telling you, you could watch, and I'm watching like now. I'm going back. I'm watching movies from the 40s, like fucking Maltese Falcon,
Oh yeah.
fucking all crazy shit like that. Yo, the other day I put on Batman 1949. I didn't even know it fucking existed. It was like,
Oh, the like old
bro,
Batman.
before Adam West.
Adam West.
This
Yeah.
was 1949. It was a show like that. It was crazy. Bug.
Yeah. I've
can-
never actually seen that one, and my Batman is Jack Nicholson and Michael
Oh,
Keaton. Like
yeah,
that's my
absolutely.
jam right there.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
100%.
Um,
Without a doubt.
and it's interesting. We kind of grew up in an era too, where much like hardcore and punk rock, like there wasn't a digital accessibility to films. Like if you
Oh.
went to a video store to rent a movie, you were there to rent that movie, and then you went back to your house and you watched the movie, and you didn't do anything else. Like you were immersed in it.
Right.
And
That
now
was
we've got
it.
this
That
like
was
schizophrenic culture to where it's just like, I'm gonna watch like 5 seconds of this movie, and if I don't like it within those 5 seconds, I'm just gonna shut it off. And like,
yeah, it kind of and it makes the music industry a lot harder because I used to I not used to always do when I listened to something I would remember listening to these fucking classic albums for the first time and like hearing like you listened and like it was an experience. You sat there with the album cover, you really listened to this music and like because you're not going to convey anything that hits you that quickly. It's not anything that has any depth to it anyway.
Faces of Death. You see that?
Angie says, "Who remembers renting Faces of Death?"
I remember renting Faces of Death, and I also remember becoming a vegetarian after it for like 6 years.
Yo, that shit. Fuck, I was probably like 11 years old watching a lot of
that shit's awful.
Crazy.
Oh, God.
That shit was awful, bro.
Yeah.
When I was overseas, I woke up and my platoon sergeant was watching it on Christmas.
It's a way to get you ready for war, though. Then,
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
The guys from Disembodied, Martyr AD, they showed me this video. It was fucking terrible. I think it was like this Russian soldier in the Middle East, and like they've got his fucking head down, like they're holding his head down on their boot, and they're fucking like sawing his throat open with like a fucking Syrian knife. Oh, it was the worst shit. I was like, oh my God, that shit.
I don't want to see that.
There was a website called gore.com.
Oh yeah.
And they would put on like the cartels, like them like decapitating people, like one with a chainsaw, the other one with a serrated knife, sawing somebody's head off and stuff like that. That stuff. Listen, that's stuff. I'm not impressed by that stuff. It really, it's a loss of, it's really a loss of humanity right there. Like
I think since
to watch somebody go away,
I didn't want to see that.
And I can't even watch that shit like fictitiously anymore. Like in movies where there's like torture and shit, I'm like, nah, I'm out. Like,
What's crazy, bro? I used to enjoy how that they did the aesthetics of it, and like now it's too real. Now I'm just like, oh, that's it's like
it's too much. And harking back to what we were saying about the hardcore and like VHS and stuff, like you when you bought a record, you remember like how old you were, where you were, like what you did to go get it, and like it was like an adventure. And so when you got it, it was like this coveted thing, and like it wasn't something that you just took for granted, like, oh, I heard this on Spotify or whatever, and like
not at all. Yeah, you loved it. You loved it.
You were invested in that experience. That was you invested in that. You wanted to sit there and listen to the music and read the lyrics with it. You know what I mean? And thumb through it. And it's like
it was tangible. That's what they're missing today. It was tangible.
Yeah.
I mean, records are making a comeback, so maybe things will change around. It's like, what else is there? Like, we've honestly, and excuse my obscenity, but we've shot our load as far as the technology is concerned. There's what else could there be? You know what I mean? Like you've digitized everything. Like digital format is like that's it. You shot your
You can
load.
queue
Like
it up in your
there's
brain.
only one way to go is to go back.
Yeah, it's like,
You know
That's
what
the
I
next
mean?
step.
Is to go back and get back to those things, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, my brother tells me, he says his son and daughter are two different people, and they're only like 3-4 years apart. One of them is he's like Gen Z, and he's just like he's video games up, up all hours of the day, playing video games with his friends and everything like that,
Who does
and
that?
everything is very like, if they want to watch something, they go to YouTube, and like they watch everything on YouTube and everything like that. And then his youngest, his daughter, she's listening to records and talking to her friends on the phone while they listen to records, like back in the day. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
oh
like
wow, so you have a
there is.
contrast of one that's kind of like what we did and one that's all about today, like both in the same
Yeah,
family.
yeah, and what else is there? I mean, and honestly, it is coming back. Things are coming back, and
Yeah,
people. It's gonna take, like, listen, to unfuck this whole thing. It's gonna take a long time. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
it's a fuckery that happened, and we weren't ready or not. Here it came,
Yeah.
and there it went. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like like the phones are going to be phones, and they're going to be used to the extent that they're being used to these days. And now you got AI writing everybody's papers, and nobody knows how to read, and like all this other stuff. Like this is what we asked for. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
it's
Yeah.
writing
Kind of.
music too.
So there really is no other options. And
Yeah.
that's why records are coming back. That's why cassettes are coming back,
Yeah.
because there is no other options. Like they made their money. They that's it. Like there's only so far you could go. Like, and yeah, AI, if they, want AI writing your music is like a whole other thing. You know what I mean? It's like
It is crazy
whatever.
to hear some of the shit that AI is making, where it's like
Yeah.
they did like an AI metal band, and it was like pretty good. I was really surprised. I was like,
Of
Yeah.
wow.
course, it's of course, but
Well, they used AI to finish a Beatles song that came out. They
True.
released that Beatles
well,
song.
yeah, they
Yeah.
kind of like they used the AI to learn all about John Lennon and to do
Yeah,
what he would do next, which yeah, I mean, that's cool and everything, but I mean, I don't want to get into things because I don't really like to
Yeah.
mix my
I mean, I
music
love
with my views. I
I
think,
love hearing Frank Sinatra sing Metallica songs and shit. Like, there's an AI
oh yeah,
version.
yeah, yeah.
There's an AI
It's
version of
funny.
Frank Sinatra singing
yeah.
Master of Puppets. It's fucking awesome.
Right, right,
It's fucking
right.
great.
Yeah, that it's there's a of course there's going to be an
Well,
element
that's
of fun to
entertainment,
it.
right? Like
AI is
there's things
for
that are
sure.
entertaining too.
With VHS and records, though, the analog experience, and I do kind of appreciate the fact that I think we hated VHS growing up because it was like, oh, sometimes a tape would break and like you couldn't rewatch your favorite part without rewinding it, and shit like that. And so it was like it sucked in that way, but like I think it is kind of cool that these kids are getting into it, and that like you don't generally just stop watching a VHS. You can put it on pause and shit like that, but like it's one of those things where you're invested into it, much like a record. Like you throw
Right.
on a record and it's like you want to hear the whole track. Because if you just take it off like with the needle and shit, you could scratch the record and all that shit. Like, so
Yeah.
that to me like seems like it's more advantageous.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and it's got an element of like nostalgia to it too, which
Yeah.
which is definitely got an attraction to people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And but also, even with like if you want to talk sonically and you want to nerd out on like getting into the sonic part of it, although if you get like a see the thing is why technology evolves and there's reasons why, but this like if you have a record that's in perfect condition and you put on a record like a vinyl record that's in perfect condition with a really good system, you just get an element of sound that you don't get with anything else, and it just
100%.
has these fucking balls to it. Like, I remember growing up and listening to it with like my parents and listening to Led Zeppelin and hearing fucking John Bonham's drums like they were in a fucking room, and it was jarring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's everything is just so, and like even the way people record, it's like that dude's not fucking playing like that. It's like all fucking
triggers and shit, right?
Triggers, and there are people that are. Now I'm not going to take away from. There are incredible kids out there, and that are just way beyond anything I can fucking understand. And like,
they're insane.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and God bless.
Yeah.
But
any parting words of wisdom?
Parting words of wisdom. Honestly, just
wear a coat. It's getting cold.
It's getting cold. Be yourself. Be true to who it is that you are, and do whatever it is in this life that makes you happy, because you have to do a lot of fucking things in this life just to survive. Make sure that you make time for those things that make you happy, because everyone has a real passion in them, and whatever the fuck it is, you should fight like an animal to pursue it.
Absolutely. Chris?
Yeah, I think I like mine. Get a coat. It's getting cold.
Yeah, it is. That's fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you guys for coming on the show. This has been a really amazing conversation, and I'm going to be sure to post all your links to all your music down here and all your social media and everything. And I don't know if you guys are doing this, but are you doing the t-shirt printing for just the band, or are you planning to like pick up clients or anything for that?
Yeah, just the band.
Okay. I was going to say, well, if you need t-shirts.
No, I appreciate it. But
yeah. But I still think that's cool. I still think that's amazing. Again, guys, I really appreciate you guys being here, and, hang out for a little bit afterwards, because I want to get you guys some of the amazing shirts that I make. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm amazing or anything, but I like the designs.
You are amazing, bro.
I like the designs a lot. Let me show you some of the samples that we got here. We did a bullet, or excuse me, this is Scream glow in the dark right here. We got bullet. Here's the Hell's Heart Black Flag logo. That's
very cool.
That's the official logo. What else we got? We got Psycho 2 and another Scream glow in the dark Tatum. But that's just a sampling of what we have over at hellsheartco.bigcartel.com. Head on over there. Use the code 20 for 20% off your entire order. The shirts that we print on too are Bella Canvas, which are like the softest shirts I've ever had. They're polyester cotton rayon blend. They feel fucking amazing. So if you guys support it with that, that'd be amazing. And like I said, support Fire is Murder, Chris and Steve and all those guys. And like, if you're in the New York area, catch a show of theirs, buy a shirt, do all that. Support these guys. They're awesome. They're keeping the hardcore scene, and specifically the New York hardcore scene, alive. And it's amazing. So guys, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, man.
Absolutely. All right, everybody.
Yeah,
namaste.
thank you for everybody that came on to watch too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice to have you guys' interaction. So step by next time. It'll be awesome.
All right.
Guys.
All right, guys. Namaste. God bless. Be good.